Does it all look familiar? That's right. I'm back in Denali again for another weekend of running. We'll talk in the morning. All right, well, it's the next day. I got back from Denali last night. I came back a little bit early. I had some knee issues from my run, and it's an old injury in my knee, and I know how that one rolls. When it starts aggravating me, I just stop running and stop doing everything for a couple of days. It goes away, I'm good to go. It's been a while since we did this Hip Life stuff. It's probably been, 4 months since I've done a Hip Life video. And I guess we're due for an update. So the hip itself is fantastic. It's doing great. Got little issues with the muscles still, especially with overdoing it. I have a tendency to overdo it, and I can't help myself. But it's nothing serious. It's just a matter of the muscles getting tired, being a little sore. So I'll take it easy for the next day or so, and everything is fine. The prosthetic, the hip itself, feels great. There's no issues at all with it. It's September now, and surgery was in February, so it's been a minute, and it's feeling better. Since the last time we did this Hip Life episode, I've been running a lot. I haven't been traveling that much just because of work hasn't been allowing me to travel that much. So I've been sticking to the area. Gone down to Denali a couple of times, but like this weekend. But primarily I've been sticking to the trails and roads around home and in town, in this area. Mostly just for financial reasons, to be honest. I'm just trying not to spend a lot of money on gas and food for carp camping and stuff. It all adds up. So I've been running a lot of medium length distances, nothing really long. I think my longest run was about 14 miles, 15 miles maybe at the most until this weekend. Triple Lakes Trail was 19 and a half miles, and it felt really good. My legs felt incredible. Last 3 or 4 miles I was exhausted, but that was to be expected. So I've been focusing on trails in this area, in Fairbanks and Esther, hitting like Skyline Ridge, shorter trails, but still having a lot of fun. They have been amazing. Work's really been challenging with my hours because I'm working more midday shifts lately than I have been. So I only have a short window to run every day. So until this weekend, I haven't been trying to do any longer runs out of the fear of how it'll impact my hip and what all that enduring stress load would do to the hip. So it's one of the reasons I've been keeping my mileage short. Normally I would do like maybe 60 miles a week would be an average pace a week for me. But right now 40 miles is a struggle just with work and schedules and everything. But this weekend the hip was fantastic. It was amazing and worked really well. Did a lot of downhilling, really hard downhilling. Just testing it out, just slamming on it a bit, and it felt great. I know it's going to impact the prosthetic down the road, all this running. You know, the lifespan of the hip isn't going to be that long by comparison of just hiking and having a normal, active life instead of an aggressive active life that we all live. This conversation leads to what the whole point of this video is. Wear and tear on my hip. More specifically on my hips. I was diagnosed with femora acetibular inflection. So my femur, the balls of my femurs are roll in like this instead of being a nice angle, and they causes an unusual wear pattern around the middle of the femur ball, which grinds into the cartilage and wears the cartilage down, eventually completely removing cartilage and then grinding into the bone of my pelvis, which is how far advanced my left hip got. And if you followed my Hip Life series, I explained that pretty well. Well, the right hip has it too. The right hip has FAI. It just isn't as advanced as the left hip was. This all started to change last month. So I started feeling discomfort in my left hip, just on a basic level. I think it was in 2017, I started having like an arthritis feeling in my hip. It would occur if I was running really, really hard, pushing it really hard. And then it would happen when the weather would change from really hot to get really cold and moist. And in fall, it really affects me too. And then it would fade out and be gone. For months, it would be gone. And then all of a sudden, it would come back. And I'd have, like, out of the blue. Except this time, it wouldn't be because of weather. Sometimes it would have to do with the stress loads from work or from excessive running or one thing or another. Who knows? Then I would have that deep arthritis feeling in my hip, just that grinding, inflamed pain that would be there for like 4 or 5 days. Then that would fade away into like a deep bone bruise feeling, and every step would be like a really deep bruise feeling, and then it would fade away again, and it just kept doing that and revolving in this cycle till it became more advanced and got worse and a little bit more debilitating. Sharp pains would ensue on heel strikes mostly, or when I'm pulling my leg forward. It gradually became a constant horrible pain. Well, August 31st, I had the first signs of pain in my right hip. It was the same basic mild arthritis feeling that I had in my left hip. Just that swollen joint discomfort and slight grinding feeling that you get. And that lasted about 3 days. And then for like another 3 days after that, I had that bone bruise feeling in my hip. And it caused a slight limp. It wasn't really painful, just like I said, it's just slightly discomforting. And I knew immediately what it was. I knew that it was the FAI is advancing. And I don't know how much faster it's going to advance than my left hip since it was already there. Even my doctors would ask me, do I have any issues with my right hip? And when I would tell them no, they seemed a little taken back by that maybe I should be having issues with my right hip, with my left hip as advanced as it was. And but no, unless the left hip was masking pain that I was getting in my right hip, I wouldn't know. Now I'm noticing it. That initial pain went away for several weeks, and then it came back again for a couple of days, and then it faded back out. Now there's no pain there again. I had a little sciatic pain go down my leg from my hip, down my leg, like last week, and that lasted like a day or two. And it's just all these little things are starting to happen that I know happened with my left hip. So the right hip is on its way. I don't want to let my right hip go as far as my left hip did. That pain was insane. I don't want to live through 2020 again with the amount of pain I was in. So I'm monitoring my hip, keeping track. I'm going to record everything as it happens, so I can follow it and determine when I need to take the best course of action with the health of my hip. I have to go back to my doctor, I think in February, for my 1-year hip evaluation on my left hip, just to get it checked out, make sure everything is copacetic, make sure everything is cool. And I'm going to notify them ahead that I'd like to get my right hip evaluated as well, and let them know about the pain that I've experienced, the level of the pain that I'm experiencing when I notify them, and let them know that I don't want to wait to get the hip replaced. I want to get the hip replaced before it reaches the level of advancement that my left hip did. I'm hoping I can get another year out of this hip before the pain gets so severe that I'm miserable again and my life is just crap. So we'll talk real world stuff in February. The good news is I know it's happening. I'm not going to have a negative experience like I did with my left hip. The left hip was really negative. And I'm going to prepare myself this time. I have all the hardware already, so I'm going to save myself a bunch of money there. I got the insurance now that will take care of this, so my out-of-pocket's going to be much easier to manage. I got time to prepare for it financially, so I'm going to start saving money for it. I've been open with you guys about everything, about how last year I had my GoFundMe. The GoFundMe account paid for about 90% of my out-of-pocket, and I love you guys for that. Thank you. I'm still making medical payments right now. I probably have 3 or 4 more months left, and I'll have my medical bills paid off, and that'll be cool. And then I can start saving for the next surgery. Aside for the new hip pain in my right hip, which, like I said, it's really intermittent. It's not an issue yet. It's not a big thing yet. It's just something that I've noticed that I'm not going to ignore, like I ignored my left hip. My left hip was different because I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was arthritis. I thought I had just a form of arthritis because I was getting old. Because when I was a kid running track, I had tendonitis in my left hip, and I was on crutches for a few months, and it took me out of running. I stopped running because of it. And through my life, I've always had one issue or another with my left hip, and I always attributed it to that tendonitis that I had when I was 14. And so when I started developing that same arthritis, tendonitis feeling in my hip 5 years ago, that's what I thought it was. And I thought, oh, it could heal and fade away. And so I just blew it off until it got worse and worse and worse. And then finally, 2019, it started really doing its thing. And in 2020, it exploded. Now I know what's going on. My right hip. So I know how to be more responsible about it, and we'll go with it and just monitor it. And when the time comes, I know what's going to have to be done, which is a much better way of looking at it than thinking my life was over like I did last year and pretty much wanting to crawl into a ball on the floor in the middle of my living room for weeks at a time, ignoring the rest of the world. That's about it. I could have a year till I have to replace my hip. I could have 2 years till I'm going to have to actually get the hip replaced. Preparation is key, and I'm going to start preparing for it now. And I will update you with the progress of it, or lack thereof. Fingers crossed. But until then, I'm going to keep running. I got races planned for next year, and those are going to be the Alaska Endurance Trail Race, 24-hour challenge. I'm going to try to run the Drew's Angel Creek 50K next year. I'm going back to Squamish, BC, to run the Squamish 50 mile. Not gonna do the 50-50. That's just way too much for me to chew on. I'm gonna stick with the 50 mile. And I'm returning to Javelina for their 20th anniversary. I can't miss that. That's gonna be a party. So that's my focus for next year. If I'm able to squeeze anything else in successfully, bonus. But until then, I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'll let you know how everything goes down the road. Till then, see you around.